Listening to this podcast right now! Do you want to hear a fucking podcast about anything and everything? Yeah. Like movies, music, television, and more?
Oh my God.
Well, you've come to the right place.
Yes.
Subscribe to Journey into Comics Network, and you get Podcastrophe, hosted by me,
Yes.
Dick. Why not throw a couple bucks to the Patreon? It's your choice. Yeah. This is a Podcastrophe.
That sounds so awesome.
The following is a Journey into Comics Network production.
To a nicer guy, it couldn't happen.
I'm the man of the hour, the man with the power.
Diamonds are forever.
He put hard times on Dusty Rhodes and his family.
And what you gonna do, Andre?
History beckons the Macho Man. Yeah.
The best there is, the best there was.
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass.
2 words for ya. If you're some man, the champ is here.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
Hey everybody, welcome to Journey into Wrestling, episode 3 of season 2. I'm your host, Brando. Joining me here today is, of course, my tag team partner, Nate.
Oh yeah, brother, I'm here on the podcast.
How's it going, bro?
Washo Man.
Washo Man, yeah, we gotta bring him back. Washo Man's cool.
Tell you what, I kind of want to get my kid in here to say that live on the podcast because it's funny. He came in here earlier before his dinner and was just smacking keys and using the mouse, saying that he was doing a podcast with old Nate.
He's figuring it out, man. Before you know it, he's gonna be doing his own show at like 6. Let me sit down.
It's
I feel like
crazy to
suit
think
and
about.
tie, like super professional. You know, he's gonna show up all. Brando, I'm glad to fucking catch up and talk some more wrestling. It's been a sort of busy season in wrestling now. Like, things are really getting a little bit bizarre. We have so much to talk about, but not really a lot to talk about, but so much to talk about.
Yeah, you know, a lot has gone down within just the last few weeks. It kind of calmed down a little bit after SummerSlam and letting stories play out. And now we are here gearing towards... We just got done with Hell in a Cell. We're gearing towards TLC, I think.
Yes,
the
sir.
Next one for Raw. And then after that, we're going into Survivor Series. We're going to have a big pay-per-view event lull. But, Nate, before we get into anything, there was something that happened that really got my attention because this is something that has been in the talks, in the works for like years.
Okay,
And
I don't think I know this.
It's finally happening.
Okay.
And we are finally getting a War Games match in WWE.
Oh, yes, NXT War Games, dude. It's going to be right before Survivor Series, right?
It'll be that weekend. It's called Takeover War Games. It's in. They're going to be in Houston, and it is going to be. I want to say Undisputed, which is of course Adam Cole's group, and then you have. Is it Insanity? Or Sanity?
Sanity with Drew. Is Drew McIntyre going to join them?
No. McIntyre's defending his title. I think that is Roderick Strong.
Okay.
No. Roderick Strong is with the Authors of Pain, and then you have Sanity, which is the I can't remember the two tag team guys, but then of course I think the only guy that I actually remember the name of is Eric Young.
Yeah, Eric Young, and I know Nikki Cross too, but the other dudes in Sanity, they're just like the big behemoths that run everybody the fuck over.
Big dude doing big dude things, but it is going to be it's going to be a 3-team version like the very last War Games that was had that kind of killed the concept for years to come. Where it was NWO Hollywood, Wolfpack, and WCW teams. Originally, it was just 2 teams of like 4 or 5. Would go at it. But Nate, it is confirmed 2 rings.
That's so awesome, Brando. I was worried that when they said War Games, the concept was going to get kind of watered down, I guess is the word I would say. Between War Games and WCW's World War III event, they were definitely in some ways innovative by saying you don't just need 1 wrestling ring. You could do 2 or 3. And I'm really looking forward to this match. When it got announced, it was really weird because it got announced like as soon as the tapings were done. So there was no chance for it to leak early. As soon as the tapings were done, Triple H made the announcement that they were doing War Games, which is really exciting.
They've been doing that with the NXT tapings because they did the same thing with like Asuka's title, resignation, I guess you could say, where she gave up the title, where, the actual episode was either like week 2 or 3 into their tapings, but they went ahead and, since it happened, they said, yep, this is the, you're going to see this in a week or 2, but this happened. She is definitely going to have to step away. And of course, she's going to be debuting on Raw, on the Raw roster, starting with TLC, going up against Emma, I believe.
Yeah, it's such a strange pick, actually, with as far as Asuka talk is concerned. I know that they were rewriting parts of Raw while they were on air for Raw, and so much so that the segment with the women's match where they did the 5-way elimination style got changed. It was originally supposed to be a 3-person match between Nia Jax, Emma, and I want to say like Alicia Fox, maybe? Yeah. Then it turned into a 5-pack challenge that it was supposed to be just whoever gets the first pinfall wins. And then Michael Cole's like, I was incorrect. It's not it's actually an elimination style match. And then of course, it ends up being a surprise that of all the people to be in that match, all the different star-studded matches, you could have had the first match of Asuka's main roster career be against Sasha or Bayley. And of all the people, they picked Emma, and that's not a bad thing. I don't hate Emma as a wrestler. I think that she needs desperately to work on her mic skills and a lot of little things in her in-ring, but she's one of those wrestlers who is on the brink of having it all. And if she fine-tunes all of that, I think she's going to be able to pick it up to the next level.
I'm absolutely okay with them doing Emma first because, she's there, I guess, and she's not like abstract. She's been involved here lately. Over the since she kind of came back. Although the whole odd thing about her going to be debuting a new gimmick and then they canceled it because she couldn't pull it off. Whatever. Whoever
they gave that gimmick to Lana, I think.
I think you're right because it was going to be some sort of dancing gimmick, but I'm okay with this because whoever Asuka's going to face, she's going to beat, and
devastatingly.
You can save the Bayley match, you can save the Sasha match for later.
A big build-up.
Or just a bigger event. I'm not saying her debut is going to be big enough. You can then savor it because then people are going to be psyched just to see her for the first time on the main roster, and then we'll get a good match out of it, and then she'll win, and then we're going to go on. Now, Nate, as of today, there was a little bit of late-breaking news. There's been a rumor that WWE is courting Conor McGregor.
Really? I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense. He's a trash talker, like of the highest level.
His two influences for his persona, if you will.
You'll do fucking nothing.
Well, with the trash talk, how he carries himself, are Ric Flair and The Rock.
Oh yeah, totally.
And so McGregor has made a brand out of himself. He had arguably one of the biggest paydays ever this year when he faced Mayweather, and with him being kind of a fish out of water,
he did a damn fine job.
He did good, and I'll just say I was kind of surprised myself. However, the rumor is that they were looking to have him come in for a WrestleMania match for a big payday. Now, McGregor is still under contract with UFC. Anything that happens has to go with Dana White. It's the same thing. It's the whole cross thing, One's got to approve it, just like when WWE let Brock come in and
for $200. Yep.
Both have to agree. Both have to set it up.
And it's got to serve them both.
Yes, exactly.
Because the one thing on Brock's deal, if you'll remember, there were SummerSlam previews at the UFC event.
Exactly. So they got to plug their show and lend a former UFC and their current one of the current big top stars over, and then he got to be a draw for that show. Because Brock is a draw for UFC, and he was, just like Ronda was, just like McGregor is.
Yep.
We have to remember that the lifespan of fighters is not as long as they are for sports entertainers or wrestlers. You're looking at a couple years, and then that's it. Sometimes you can go longer, but, I honestly feel for the time being, Ronda is done fighting. She probably will not fight again. Maybe down the road.
I can fully agree with that.
Because here's the thing, okay? Fighting is a much different animal than, wrestling is scripted, it's fake, it's athletic. Sure. But to fight, you've got to have the hunger, the power, the tenacity. And she had that. But for a lot of people, that when you're in a situation of being that dominant and then you lose self-confidence.
Actually, I also heard with Ronda that the deal they're trying to broker with Ronda to come into to the WWE also includes her boyfriend, or maybe now their married husband, Travis Brown. He's a fucking big dude. He's a heavyweight. He walks around probably like 355. He's probably like 6'6", 6'8".
I heard she is currently in training with Brian Kendrick.
That's awesome.
Because he trains a lot of people, including a lot of women, to go in. Now, to put a bow on this McGregor thing, Dana White appeared today on some local Fox channel affiliate out of somewhere. I don't know. It was Fox Channel 5. And these two female hosts, they pressed him on it. They're like, what's going on with this? There's this big rumor. And Dana said that he actually sent the article to Vince in a text with question marks.
Okay, yeah, like, what the fuck?
And Vince responded saying, it's news to me.
Oh.
And Dana's like, I thought so. You guys are usually really good about, staying in contact with me about anything, about courting or talking about anything, because I just wanted to touch base. And Vince said, it may be a good idea someday, but not now.
Hey, that's Vince thinking with his head, and I think a lot of that has to do with, not to go too long on Conor McGregor here, a lot of that has to do with Conor is still, bro, he went in there with the best boxer in the world and stood toe-to-toe for almost the entirety of the fight. Conor is nowhere done with his reign as being a legendary combat fighter. He's got, I would say, at least 3 to 5 more years at that level. He is like an Anderson Silva. He is like a Mighty Mouse Johnson, or, a Cain Velasquez. Well, I guess Cain didn't really last that long, but Anderson Silva is a big example of someone who has had longevity in that sport, as is John Jones is a great example, of course. A lot of weird controversy surrounding him, and then there's the whole possibility he and Brock are going to get into it. It's interesting the world we live in now, because I think for a time, Shane McMahon wanted there to be more of a UFC feel to WWE back in the 90s. And it was kind of brushed off.
He wanted to buy UFC before Zuffa, however you pronounce their
Yeah, you said
company.
It right, Zuffa.
He wanted to actually step in and buy it. Now, there's also the thought of Brock going back to do some more fights, right? Well, Dana has said that Brock is under contract until August. However, the rumor going around the mill is that Brock's last scheduled appearance, as of right now, for the WWE, contracted appearance, his last one that he has to do, is either WrestleMania 34 or the Raw right after. After that, he can choose not to resign. However, WWE will still retain rights to him until August.
So kind of a no-compete type thing. Unless they choose to say, look, Brock, you've been awesome. You've been a fucking pro for us when we needed you to hold the belt and give the belt some weight. Think about when we were going into WrestleMania and it was like, God, the match doesn't need the title, but the title needed the match. I think that is extraordinarily true now in the landscape, and now you have all these top guys gunning for Brock. You have your Samoa Joes or your Braun Strowmans or your Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns, who now that Universal title has some more importance to it. And I think that it was a right move to put it on Brock because he is a fighting champion. They did limit his appearances, but I think they've done a really good job at limiting his appearances. And then when he shows up, it's a fucking big deal. It's not just like, oh, here we go, Brock again, destroying every fucking person. Here we go. Every week we have to hear Paul Heyman do, my name is Paul Heyman, and all of that shit. It's been really nice to kind of have limited exposure to Lesnar while he's a champion. And I know that kind of goes against the status quo of the old days where you have a working champ who shows up to every fucking house show and works their fucking backs till they break, and then you have guys like Dolph Ziggler and Seth Rollins and fucking Daniel Bryan and CM Punk and all these guys who had the title and got fucking hurt, or had this happen to them and then fucking had an injury that slowed them down because they were working so much. And of course, Lesnar's not a young dude. I get that. So the way they've protected him while still making him look like a badass, at least until I would say the Joe match, has been really good for more the Universal title than anything else. So I think that they could let him off the hook and say, look, Lesnar, you've been great. I know your contract isn't up until August. Go have a fight, man. It's cool,
Well, if you think about it, even if you go to Mania, like what I almost called him Joe. Brock wrestled at WrestleMania that year against Dean, and then had a what the fuck is this kind of match?
Yeah.
And then went and had a fight in July. So if I were WWE, if I was Brock, if I'm going to go back to a fight after my appearance, I'm going to write out that WWE contract. I'm going to get, my guaranteed money. And then meanwhile, I'm going to start my training and I'm going to get paid for it.
Yep.
And then as soon as August hits, that's when he can appear. That's when he can fight. That's when they can announce something. And meanwhile, as a promoter with UFC, you can't say anything yet. But then as soon as August hits, that's when you announced, maybe try and get it for the end of the year, get a nice hype for the end of the year fight, or, beginning of next, whatever. Whatever looks good, and gives the best sort of outcome. Now, there's been a lot of shit going on right now. We talked about it on the last episode with the Young Bucks and the cease and desist. And now a writer, former independent worker, Jimmy Jacobs, no longer with the company. Because apparently that same weekend or that night that they invaded in Ontario, he took a picture with the Young Bucks or with the Bullet Club. And they're like, bye-bye.
Brandon, I have a thought on this, and I haven't shared this with you yet, so this is nice. While it looks at the surface that this is a pretty cut and dry thing, okay, Jimmy Jacobs works for the company, he was an independent dude, huge in ROH, tag champs, all that, goes and becomes a writer, he's in the past year written some of the best parts of the storylines. He's helped script Goldberg's stuff. When Goldberg came back, he is the creator of the List of Jericho. Most people don't know that, but he actually is the guy who told Jericho, like, what about doing this list thing, And then they ran with it. He's really talented. It would not at all in this era where we have so many smarks, as we call them, the smart marks. It would not shock me at all if Jimmy said, hey, I have a fucking brilliant idea. They're already definitely, look, I don't care what anybody says, they're courting the Young Bucks. They're courting to bring Cody back. They have to be. They're such a huge draw everywhere else. You bring those dudes, and think of the importance of Adam Cole showing up at NXT. People know who the fucking Bullet Club are at this point. They are their own entity outside of any promotion, and that draws them. So if the WWE is smart, they have to play some misdirect. Yeah, you're courting these guys. Yeah, you're probably saying, Young Bucks, we've tried to sign you before and shits fell through and it didn't work. And Cody, we let you go and now you've become this super mega legend and everything. And Kenny Omega, you're a fucking amazing, insane competitor who's had some of the greatest matches of all time, arguably. But to me, it would just be so Jimmy Jacobs and company if he worked himself to be fired as a part of the storyline with the Young Bucks. So now if there's actually an invasion, Jimmy can come back as a wrestler. Jimmy Jacobs can be an on-screen talent while still doing stuff behind the scenes. I'm hopeful that that's what's happening now. The reality is it's probably he did just get fired because they're still pissed off. There's a whole cease and desist thing and not, don't eat where you shit or whatever, or however they say that. But I'm just really hopeful that this is a really well-thought-out work.
The Young Bucks tweeted, hey, Bryan Danielson, you should take a photo with us too.
That's super smart. I will say also something else happened. Jimmy Jacobs released a shirt today that's like a headline, and the headline is just unprofessional, which is probably what they called him in the meeting. It told him he was unprofessional for taking that picture with those guys, but
it's Joey Ryan, our resident Dick Slammer, he tweeted, "I wish any opponent of mine sold as much of me as WWE is selling for the Bullet Club." And several fans pointed out that in the hypocrisy of the situation, as Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and AJ Styles have all appeared on the Being the Elite YouTube series in recent months.
Correct.
Now, Jimmy Jacobs is not the only person who's been apparently gone from the company.
This next one hurts, Brando.
Yeah, as of Monday, now we don't have a actual full statement. There's just words. We
Lots
have
of rumblings.
rumors. So the belief is that Neville went in on Monday, he was supposed to be working with Enzo, but they kind of worked themselves into a corner about anybody who attacked Enzo wasn't going to get a shot. So Neville was going to end up getting a shot at Enzo and then losing. Neville then asked for his release. Apparently, Neville has been unhappy for a while, despite being the Cruiserweight champion for quite a long time. And
just look at that T-shirt they made him. Have you seen the Neville T-shirt?
I actually haven't seen the Neville T-shirt. I never did see it.
It is the fucking worst excuse for a T-shirt ever. It's literally like someone 5 seconds made the design. It's just like an arch that says Neville in basic-ass font, and then basic-ass font under the arch says King of the Cruiserweights. That's it.
I'm looking it up right now.
Sure, yes, do. Please do so. I love the clicking that people will hear, too. Like we're actually doing some research.
That?
Yes. Isn't it fucking horrible? And it was actually so horrible that the last thing that Neville has tweeted on his Twitter was, "This shirt is not on the Neville level." Really, WWE shop? Really?
That is horrible, dude.
Dude, he's a champion, and that's the best they could come up with?
It's just very plain, and sometimes plain can work, but that's just like, that's amateur Photoshop level.
It's super lazy. Lazy's the word.
Now, okay, the current belief is that Neville wants to be released, either has asked and has been granted, or has asked and has not been granted, whatever. He wants to be released and work on establishing his name on the indies like Drew McIntyre did. Neville reportedly has had issues with the company, including his T-shirt design. In addition to that, he was upset, like Austin Aries was, about their match being left off the North America WrestleMania DVD that resulted in less royalties. Interesting to note that both Aries and Neville are now gone.
Damn.
Because Aries also asked for his release as well. Aries posted a cryptic message this morning, as we record this, and he says, quote, "Know when to walk away from anyone or anything that doesn't value you. Self-worth is never determined by others."
Bingo, man. I fucking love that quote. I will say an interesting fact with the Neville leaving, Young Bucks tweeted him. Did you see that tweet?
I might have. I don't remember.
They said, "Hey Neville," or "Hey at WWE Neville, we have pretty awesome T-shirts. You want one?"
That's funny.
So it's like, man, and that's another thing. That's what I'm saying, Brando. If this isn't some really brilliant fucking work to get the Bullet Club in, not the Neville thing, because that seems like genuine frustrations. I just think it's a foolish mistake. If you're not looking at what they're doing without the backing of WWE, making such humongous waves, I think that's the best way to say it. The entirety of the Bullet Club, dating into New Japan Pro Wrestling, to all the ROH appearance and all the side things they've done, all the indie appearances and everything, they've made not just names for themselves, but they've kind of carved out their own legacy. And they're like we said before, they're modern NWO, man. And nothing but respect and love for the Young Bucks.
Did you hear what Roman said about that?
I actually... Oh, yeah, I did see. He threw some shade at them and said something like, what we need right now isn't rehashes on old ideas and characters. We need new people to step up and bring something different that's never been done before or something.
Yeah, Roman said he was in a WWE conference call, and he said, quote, "We don't need guys running around doing two sweets. We don't need guys acting like they're DX from, 15 years ago. We need original characters."
Yeah, man. And I get what Roman's saying, but there are other things that, you can only do so many concepts in the entirety of wrestling's history before you have to recycle some shit. And you might not notice that a thing that has already happened in the past is being recycled, unless you're a super fan or someone who knows what's going on. So a lot of times they get away with that. And I think that Roman is kind of hypocritical in saying that, because in some ways, when the Shield started, you could have assumed the fucking Shield was the NWO archetype, just the exact same. Except for it was different. They didn't need to talk a whole bunch or run their mouths a whole bunch. They let their actions do the talking. And look what that led to them. 3 fucking megastars. Even though I don't like Roman,
Well, the Bullet Club kind of was an NWO knockoff, though, especially when it started. Because you had in the New Japan, you had these gaijins coming in and basically taking over and becoming the top stars with Prince Devitt, Finn Balor. Of course, you had Gallows and Anderson, and then Styles came in, and then you had other characters and other people join in. Now you have something written down here, and I'm anxious to know what this is, because on our rundown, you said Brando called it in episode 1, and I don't know what I called. What did I call?
Well, Brando, we were talking about what we would do with restructuring all the parts of the WWE if we had our hand on it, right? If we could have our hands on it.
Okay.
And involving Neville, you said something all the way back on episode 1 of season 2, not episode 1. Jesus, I can't remember that far back.
That was WrestleMania 32 review?
Yeah, it was.
With Wes. Wes was on that one.
And this has no bearing on that whatsoever. But
Long time ago.
You said episode 1 of season 2, and I quote, "If it was up to me, bring Kalisto into the cruiserweights and have him be your champion." They're not doing anything with Kalisto right now. And if you give him the title, which he's never held a major title other than tag titles, I think. Mm-hmm. Right? The Lucha Dragons held tag titles for a short time.
I know they held the NXT titles. I don't remember if they held the SmackDown or the actual WWE
I don't
titles.
think they held...
They might have, but I'd have to look up the actual title history.
So Kalisto winning on last week's Raw, this week we haven't seen yet because we're ahead of schedule. That makes sense. They had Kalisto beat Enzo for the Cruiserweight title. And it just, as soon as it fucking happened, I was like, hey, Brando called it. Like, for real. He said that Kalisto should be champ, and here we are. Kalisto's champ.
I like his new look, too.
Yes, I like his new look. I love that he dedicated his title win to Eddie.
It was his birthday. It was like Eddie's birthday, wasn't it?
Eddie's 50-somethingth birthday. 50.
We are approaching, in November, 12 years ago, is the passing of Eddie. Another thing I read is that this title win for Kalisto is going to be temporary. They did it to get shock and awe, to get themselves out of that corner of nobody can challenge Enzo. But they're going to put the belt back on Enzo because they're going to use him to shape the entire division.
They should.
I agree, too. He's not the best worker in the world, but damn, he's a damn good heel.
And he's genius on the mic.
Oh, dude, I like him. And that's exactly what they need for this division. And same with Kalisto. I think he's the top face right now. You lost Neville. That's awful. I'm sorry. That had to happen. I hope that he can go, do his thing, come back better. Because I honestly think that he's a little bit bigger. But I also think that if you're wanting to build this division, which you've just been showcasing at the end of SmackDown, that Enzo needs to be a part of that, and Enzo needs to be there. He needs to talk. You need some talkers. You need some high flyers. You need some action. God damn it! That's one thing.
He's one of their top merch sellers, dude.
I really feel like that. Like 205 Live has just been. You don't need people doing the Cruiserweight Classic stuff every single week. But you need some more get up and go. You need to get people wanting to see this. And I'll be honest with you, the whole 205 Live thing, tape it before SmackDown.
Yes.
Just
Don't do it after, because you're not going to top that. Look, I get it. The Cruiserweight stories have been pretty bland until Enzo picked it up. So why people would want to... No, while... It seems to me that, Enzo was a big driving factor to changing the division. I mean, for the first time in the history of Raw, the Cruiserweights headlined a main event. That's never happened before.
I saw a Botched Spot cartoon. It was hilarious. It was the Titanic, but the Titanic was named the third hour of Raw.
Dude, they've been trying. You know why they've been trying to bomb the third hour, right?
Because the company doesn't want to do 3 hours anymore?
The company has not wanted to do 3 hours since USA said, we want you to do 3 hours. And they have slowly went from, okay, cool, let's do 3 hours, to at the 2 hour mark, they make their home run the biggest thing of the night, whether it's a main event with Roman and Braun or whoever the fuck it is. So it switches totally. Now, with the Cruiserweights picking steam back up and still being technically a part of Raw that films before SmackDown, 205 Live, it's so confusing.
Well, they don't film 205 Live before SmackDown. It airs live after SmackDown. I think they should put it before, because, back in the day, and even still today, with pay-per-views and pre-shows, they put out a high-flying match to get the crowd pumped up. Put out an hour of Cruiserweights before SmackDown. Get them pumped up for SmackDown to go live on the air. Boom. There you go. And then all you got to do is, just air it when SmackDown goes off the air for your third hour of SmackDown, essentially. And there you go. I've always wondered why Raw, other than the fact that it needs to fill up 3 hours, gets the Cruiserweight division, but the show is after SmackDown.
Yeah, it's super weird. It's super weird. It's them trying to utilize the network. I have a question, Brando, just to talk about the network for a second. If they said, hey, man, for $5 more a month, if you do the network and $5 extra, you can see Raw and SmackDown live on the network and get rid of them from USA. I feel like at some point that's going to be the future. And would you be cool with that? Because then you're 100% in control of your own product. You're able to not worry about going over. I know that in some ways it's limiting, but I feel like since the network launched, more and more people have the network. It's so smart to have WWE Network if you're a wrestling fan.
Yeah, but they've also stagnated. They haven't grown subscribers. They're struggling to grow subscribers. They released a questionnaire. Did you get the questionnaire?
You know what? I actually might have, but it went probably to my spam folder because I don't check my email often enough.
Well, here's the thing. I got it, and I canceled my subscription back in June. Okay, and then you're like, "Don't worry, bro. I got you. You can use mine." And I'm like, "Fucking awesome," because I go through these spurts of where I watch it a lot, and then I don't watch shit for a while. Which is awesome. I thank you so much for that. But they're trying to get me back as a customer. Back in September, they even said, you don't have to pay anything for 3 months. You get 3 months of the network for free if you sign up now.
Holy shit.
And I'm like, whoa, which would be funny. I'm like, my gut instinct is like, I should do that. But I'm like, Nate's letting me use his. I'm already in a promo. But they sent me a questionnaire, and they asked me a bunch of, what is your interest in this? What would your interest be in this? And then based on what you say, it's like, based on this, how much of this would make you subscribe, pay more money to this, do this, do that. They did have a premium content thing for $15. The live television thing was not a part of that. It was kickbacks. It was perks. It was early ticket sales. It was discounts on merch. It was the acquisition of more tape libraries. i.e., and it said this, TNA/Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, live events from companies like TNA, Impact, Ring of Honor, New Japan, ICW from Britain. It also said, how interested would you be in an ECW revival at a TV 14 rating? I'm like, has this been thrown around backstage? And I'm like, because, I mean, the whole, ECW at this point doesn't need to be around.
Hardcore wrestling is pretty much dead.
Yeah. I mean, I always, thought to myself, in, a fantasy booking type sense, what I would have done to save ECW. And you're totally Monday morning quarterbacking it or whatever. You're completely saying, well, I saw this, I know this happened, so I would change this. I would slowly back away from the hardcore and edge towards a more MMA style of production.
Ooh.
And make it the more serious. And it would have to be a transition. I know that a long time ago when I was playing this wrestling game on the computer, when I had a third show, and it was basically I had two different main shows, and this third show I was prototyping it to be a more darkened arena type effect, and then I had a completely different style of presentation in my mind for it. Totally off topic, but I just thought that was really interesting with a little questionnaire that they sent. Now, Nate, you have a new segment that you want to debut here on the show.
I'm so excited. What?
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 Said you had a new segment.
What?
Said you had a new segment.
What?
Said you had a new thing you want to talk about.
Okay, we'll talk about it. All right, Brando. So here's how it happens. I, in 2005, lost about 70 to 80% hearing in my right ear. Ever since then, I've been not really doomed, but put in a situation where in order to fully enjoy my TV experience, I always have to have subtitles for everything. Movies, TV, YouTube shows if they have them, whatever I can get my hands on. So I know what is actually being said, because sometimes I don't hear words as correctly as possible.
Caitlin actually has an auditory processing issue.
Okay.
She never realized that she had until she actually learned about it. Basically what it is that sometimes she has issues watching a show, hearing the dialogue, and she doesn't hear it, or it doesn't process right.
Correct.
So,
that can happen to me too. It's like I almost describe what happens to me as phantom ear. I'm thinking I'm hearing something, and then it's not quite that, and so using subtitles has been like a blessing to me.
Right,
really.
yeah. We watch the majority of our shows with subtitles.
Well, I watch wrestling with subtitles.
That's a nightmare.
Oh, bro.
Live TV, live sports with anything with subtitles, it's always way behind, and it's sometimes completely wrong.
Well, the nice thing is I don't watch Raw live or SmackDown live. Typically, sometimes I do, but typically I don't. Typically, I got to watch the hour-and-a-half shortened versions on Hulu.
Which is much better for 3-hour Raws.
Correct. However, way back, I want to say last year, maybe even it would have been last year, probably about this time, Asuka was facing somebody on NXT. I'm watching NXT, and the subtitle said, Dixie Carter, terrorist. Having nothing to do with what was being said. I think the line was Asuka got taken down with a head scissors or something. And it said, Dixie Carter, terrorist. And I was like, well, somebody at Hulu is really trying to start a fucking war. Because that's what it seems like. And I actually tweeted to Hulu, and they were like, we'll get right on it and take care of it. I don't know if they ever did. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. But I thought, how fun would it be to go through a Raw or a SmackDown and write down some of the really fucking weird shit that is missaid in the subtitles. And I'm going to say these. Some of them are long sentences that I'm going to try to have you guess what the actual sentence is. Others, it's as simple as just really getting a word wrong. The reason I want to do this is not just to call WWE out for this mistake. It is hilarious, don't get me wrong. But I do also want to talk about how there are people who are fully deaf, who if you're watching Hulu and watching Raw or SmackDown, and you're about to find out, if you're watching with subtitles it will get so fucking confusing, especially if you don't have the ability to read lips that well, and that's even especially more difficult considering that a lot of what I'm about to talk about comes from the announcers, who you don't see on air whatsoever. So, Brando, I'm going to start with a couple. I'm going to say what they put the subtitle as, and I want to see if you can tell me what you think was actually being said from the announcer. Okay? So here we go with the very first one. We start off with, remember what we thought in the top of the show. We start off with, remember what we thought in the top of the show.
Okay.
You have no idea, and you're not supposed to. I don't expect you to get any of these right because it's so fucking bizarre.
Well, no, because that's actually something that could have been said.
It is, but what was actually said is, we start things off with Seth Rollins ready to face Braun Strowman. We start off with, remember what we thought in the top of the show. And the actual lines being said were, we start things off with Seth Rollins ready to face Braun Strowman. Okay? Going on to the next one. Seth Rollins has to brace himself for the matchup against the Among Men. They clearly have left a couple words off here, but this is what is said. Seth Rollins has got to brace himself for his matchup against the monster among men. Speaking of Braun Strowman, I just want to tell you that this segment today is only the first 10 minutes of Raw from now 2 weeks ago. It was the Braun Strowman, Seth Rollins match they had that was after Braun devastated Dean Ambrose the week prior.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 2 times this happens. One time Corey Graves says Braun Strowman is 385 pounds. Hulu puts 380. Okay, so that's a 5-pound shift. JoJo, when she's ring announcing, says Braun Strowman is 385 pounds. Hulu says 383. He gained 3 pounds from the different people saying it. I don't know how. He's got a fucked up diet. This one's a little less crazy. The possibility to make him more serious. The wrong word is serious. It was supposed to be dangerous. So people are like, they're trying to make Braun really serious.
There's a possibility to make him even more serious.
This one almost fucking killed me, Brando. Desperation booth from Rollins. I don't know what a desperation booth is, folks, but if you can find one, please go inside and tell me what's in there. But the actual line was desperation boot from Rollins. This one's a little weird. Saddens Rollins out of the ring. I don't know how you sadden somebody out of the ring, but it was slams Rollins out of the ring. This one is also really funny. Again, it's just the minor little inconsistencies, but if you were deaf or partially deaf and reading this shit and had to use it as a guide to figure out what the fuck was going on, you would just be like, huh? Rollins has to keep shopping on the Big Sequoia. Rollins has to keep shopping on the Big Sequoia. It should be chopping at the Big Sequoia. Oh, it's so bad. Oh, it's so bad. Now, this is the last one I have. This was only from the first 10 minutes, as I said, folks. The first 10 minutes of Raw 2 weeks ago. So this one says, and I don't know how I'm going to get through this. This is very much like the biology report from Journey into Comics. Again, still having wobbly legs, but still appear grabbing a hold on the road. It doesn't make any sense.
What was the thing that they called Sheamus?
Captain Lawyer, not the Celtic Warrior, the Captain Lawyer. How do you fuck that up? People sitting at home are like, when did Sheamus become Captain Lawyer? Is that a gimmick change? He looks the exact same. What the fuck? Fella, we are the bar. Because I passed the bar.
If the boot does not fit, you must have quit.
Yeah. So this one, again, still having wobbly legs, but still appear grabbing a hold on the road. What was actually said, again, still Strowman wobbly legged, but still up here, grabbing onto the rope. And at that point, I shut my fucking TV off and said, that's enough for the segment today. If I go too much longer, I'm liable to kill Brandon. I'm also liable to freak out because that was 10 minutes. Raw's an hour and a half on Hulu. That is 1/13% or 1/13% of the fucking whole show. 10 minutes. And that's how much gold I got out of that. So we're going to try to do this probably every episode. I'll bring a couple of these, try to find some of maybe the funnier ones. It's really strange to me how terribly they fuck up the subtitles. Like, especially with how important subtitles can be for some people. Right. Oh, yeah, man. It's true. It's damn true.
Oh, man.
We had a pay-per-view, Brando.
We did.
I think that's where we're at, right?
It's something like that. We had Hell in a Cell from SmackDown this year. Of course, last year it was hosted by Raw.
First ever women's Hell in a Cell.
Exactly. And this year we had 2 Hell in a Cells. We had a tag team, and then we had the Shane and Owens match. Now, I need to find the card because I need to go back over. I need to see the card in front of me.
I can probably tell you most of the matches.
I got it.
I feel like, didn't they open the show with the first Hell in a Cell?
They did. First, they had the pre-show match. It was the Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin defeated the Hype Bros. Then we had the Usos defeated the New Day.
That was a hell of a match.
Yeah. It was almost... Well, no. Okay, the last match was the longest match on the card. This was second, though. You had Randy Orton defeating Rusev. Baron Corbin defeating AJ Styles and Ty Dillinger for the United States Championship. Charlotte Flair defeated Natalya via disqualification. Jinder Mahal with the Singh brothers defeated Shinsuke Nakamura. Bobby Roode defeated Dolph Ziggler. And then finally, Kevin Owens defeated Shane McMahon in the Hell in a Cell. Quick reaction. What did you think of this pay-per-view?
Overall, it was a really good pay-per-view for SmackDown. There were some... I think that WWE gets in trouble with title changes at pay-per-views. Because if your first match of the night is a title change, and then your second match of the night is a title change, that pretty much tells you they're not going to do 3 or 4 title changes in one night. So you look at the women's title match, and I knew somehow, some way, they're not going to change the title. Natalya's going to find a way around it, and it's so bizarre. I wanted to mention this. Seconds, literally, like 5 seconds before Natalya hits Charlotte with the chair, Michael Cole says, well, all Natalya would have to do is get herself disqualified. Like, he said the end of the match as it was happening, and I'm just like, that wasn't really smart commentating. You didn't really need to mention it if that was the finish. If you knew that was the finish, why did you mention it right before the finish? But that was interesting because it played a little bit on Natalya just doing whatever it takes to hold on to the gold, and I think that's interestingly more a Ric Flair trait than it has been a Bret Hart trait. So I kind of loved that she kind of was playing the dirtiest player in the game in that particular match. The same thing could be said with Shinsuke and Jinder. You knew somehow, some way, Jinder has to hold on if they gave fucking Baron Corbin the United States title.
You called him Ginger.
Jinder Mahal, yes.
Ginger Mahal.
That's like Mackle Morgan Freeman. Have you ever seen that picture? It's so good, dude. Oh, shit. But what did you think of this pay-per-view?
I thought this show was better than the last Raw show, by far. The tag team match, the 2 Hell in a Cell matches killed it, and then you had some pretty good action like in between. So all in all, as far as like a standalone show, like not one of the big four, it's probably one of the best solid ones they've had all year. I was disappointed with what was the last one with Raw?
No Mercy.
The name's escaping me.
It was No Mercy.
No Mercy. Kind of disappointed me a little bit.
1F5 takes out Braun Strowman.
Well, and you know what? Backlash kind of disappointed me too. So
yeah, that could be said. WWE has a little bit of a struggle because while you have all these great ideas, you can't always put all the best matches on all the cards, always, especially if you don't have everybody in position when you need them to be in position for the specific kinds of matches.
Yeah, you got to tell your story, and I get that. It was just I thought they really delivered on this one. The two big matches that needed to deliver absolutely delivered. And of course, we had the shocker of the night.
Baron Corbin, dude.
That's not what I was going for.
Oh, what were you going for the shocker? Oh. How about a major heel turn? That's totally what you have to be talking about.
Yeah, yes, that's exactly. The Baron Corbin thing, if I was in charge, that's what I would have done, is get the U.S. title on him. Not as a redemption, but as just do this for a while and see if you can hang and make sure. We're still might do something with you later on, but you got to, do your
trying
time.
To figure it out, see if he's got what it takes to cut it, to hold on to real gold.
Maybe do something about that hairline or something.
Yeah, they did the same thing for Rusev, gave him the U.S. title for a while to see if he could hang, and I think he did a great job, and then, of course, got hurt, and then, of course, now Rusev's kind of at the bottom of the ladder again.
Yeah, he's been in the doghouse, too. But, yes, the heel turn, Sami Zayn, coming to the rescue of one of his better frenemies, Kevin Owens, and then putting him on top.
It was brilliant storytelling, something that I wasn't expecting. I think you said it yourself last time we talked that Kevin Owens has to take Shane out all the way to force Stephanie to at some point maybe get involved. And I loved that idea. I was not expecting this at all. And it's funny to me because Shane goes up to the top of the cell. We're fast forwarding to the end of the pay-per-view, of course, here. Shane goes to the top of the cell, and I'm like, first of all, this motherfucker, Shane McMahon, is now, in my opinion, a legendary name next to the Hell in a Cell in 2 matches. Him and Taker, fucking incredible. Him and Owens, also fucking incredible. You look at the work that Kevin Owens and Shane were doing on top of the cell, and stuff like that doesn't typically get done unless you're playing a video game. And I don't know if you know this, but 3 power moves in a video game, and the fucking cell collapses in one spot, and you go through it. Of course, they didn't. But Shane goes up to the top of the cell, and I'm like, he's going to fucking do like he did Undertaker, and he's going to do the giant elbow. That's kind of his new MO, for this era. And it's kind of, the elbow's always been kind of his MO. But he went up there, and at first I thought Kevin Owens just rolled out of the way. I was like, wow. That was close. Kevin Owens, what the fuck? And then, the reveal that Sami Zayn is now ringside, I was like, what the fuck? No, what? Did he really? Huh? And then, they do the replay, and you see Sami Zayn help KO up. I was like, this is genius storytelling. Sami Zayn going to SmackDown was supposed to be his redemption song. Put him in the top of the stories. Give him all the gold. He's the great competitor that he is. He's the lovable loser. He needed desperately to change his character. He needed desperately to turn on the fans so that he can get some heat on him, explore different avenues of his character, evolve himself, so when at some point in the far future, he turns on KO or KO turns on him or however that's going to go, it's more poignant and people are more on his side, and now he's really solidified himself alongside of KO as a main eventer of SmackDown, which they need.
I also like the reason, the little scene from SmackDown with saying, calling him his brother and saying, at one point I thought I despised you, but then I realized you were right. And then they hug. I'm like, that's awesome. That's really well done. I like that a lot.
Yeah, they did. I mean, Kevin Owens, man, he is the guy on SmackDown. He is the heel that is the guy. And now putting him with Sammy and them kind of having almost a Festival of Friendship Part 2 with themselves, where they're the lovable heels that are hated by everyone except for themselves, who they crack on each other and things. It's going to allow us for the first time in WWE to really see them friend it up.
And now, then they've hinted at it at SummerSlam. I did that last time. Survivor Series.
It's the S's, man.
It's the S's. We could see Shane and AJ versus Owens and Zayn.
Holy shit, that would be incredible.
Yes. Now, Nate, the Hounds of Justice have returned. We're going to shift gears here. Go over to the Raw side, because this past episode of Raw was pretty damn good. You had the Shield officially reunite at the beginning of the show, taking out Sheamus and Cesaro and those guys, and Miz was on the outside just watching, and then they cornered him and got him in, did the triple powerbomb. Crowd's going nuts. Show is at Indy, which is where they formed.
Yep.
Then broke up and now reformed.
Yep.
Crowd was going nuts. And then they weren't done. They were not done, because after the Braun Strowman and Matt Hardy match, was Braun carrying Matt Hardy up the ramp, and they just walk out in front of him, stand in front of him, and then put him through the table with the triple powerbomb.
It's beautiful to finally have this happening, and it's funny because it's all about reunions now in the WWE. All these different crazy reunions are happening, you know. So for the Shield, it's interesting because when the Shield debuted, they were bad guys doing bad things. They were maybe hired hands. What?
You just did Rikishi's theme song when he goes, "I'm a bad man doing bad things."
I didn't even think about it. It was deep in there. But they were essentially like hired guns for authority and hired guns for all these different things going on, and they would just kind of do as they pleased, and they were these bad guys. Now you've had all of them have success as solo competitors. They've all been champ. They've all held the major gold. Every single one of them, WWE champion. And actually that happened on the exact same fucking night, which is super impressive. Rollins walks in, Roman walks out, Roman doesn't walk out. Or no. Roman walked in, Rollins walked out, and then Rollins didn't walk out because Dean cashed in and then walked out. So,
have you seen the new shirt? Because they reunited and had a new shirt the same night.
Isn't it just the bump?
It is it's them doing the fist bump, and each of their fists has their own logo on it.
Oh shit, I actually haven't seen that yet. I'll have to look that up. That's awesome. But it's so beautiful because these guys have established themselves as top guys on their own.
Yeah.
Put a lot of fucking work in. Dean Ambrose, one of the hardest workers in the game, and really the same could be said for both Seth and Roman. Now, I have an interesting Shield story, Brando. I don't know if it's ever been talked about here, but this was the moment that I had literally so much fucking respect for those dudes that no matter what they did, even though, again, being force-fed being force-fed Roman Reigns has kind of been shitty, I went to a live event a couple years ago, and the main event of the live event was Team Hell No, DB and Kane, versus the Shield. Now, why does that matter? Well, because in Minneapolis, this show was in Chicago, by the way, and in Minneapolis, the Minneapolis live show that was happening the exact same night opened with the Shield versus Team Hell No. They got on a plane after their match, flew to Chicago, to the Allstate Arena, got in the arena just in time. They actually had a cage match with Ryback and somebody. I don't remember who it was, Ryback and someone, that went long so that Team Hell No could come out and have that match because they got held up at the airport. And for those teams to work two matches against each other in one night, plus have to take a flight in between those matches, they're just on another level. So with the Shield now back, I'm really excited. I don't think it's going to last forever, obviously, but I don't think that it's going to be broken apart how it was last time. I think this time, when it's time for the Shield to disperse, they're going to go, hey, guys, go your own way and make your own name like we did last time, and if we need to do this again, we can come back together. And it doesn't have to be a story of betrayal. It can be, hey, this doesn't ever have to end. We just don't have to always be together.
Yeah, I can see them definitely just kind of going their own, like, separate story. Like, because you know that they're doing this right now to give Roman something to do where he's not going to be in line to challenge Brock yet. So they're going to free up somebody else to challenge Brock. And I think this is probably, I can see the Shield going maybe until like the end of the year, going into Rumble, and then either have Roman win the Rumble again, or have all three of them in the Rumble and have them be kicking ass. Is what I would probably do. And then what you could do, because I mean, how cool would it be to have it come down to the three of them at the end of the Rumble? You know.
It would be hard because it makes you as a fan go, well, who do I want to win? And, of course, everybody's going to go, obviously, Roman should win. It's Brock. But then it's like, well, Seth has history with Brock. I don't know if you remember, but he curb stomped the fuck out of Brock Lesnar's head.
You know what? Because here's the thing. It's like, because what you want to accomplish with this is that you want to get Roman over even more, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to get him the cheers. That's what they want, and they've accomplished that this week. When you give them the choice, they're going to choose the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe you don't do that. If you did, because this is how you can tell some really cool storytelling and kind of split the group up again. Because I think Rollins deserves a shot. So here's what I would do. It's the three of them. Kind of looks like Roman's going to win. The crowd starts booing. Rollins kind of doesn't cheat. Gets the win. Gets one over on Roman. Rollins wins the Rumble. Roman's kind of mad about this. And it causes friction.
Okay, like so it now so far.
So now the next night, Roman and Rollins are kind of going face to face, and there's Dean going, hey, it was every guy. So I was trying to beat you, you were trying to beat me, you were trying to beat me, you were trying to beat each,
There can only be one Highlander.
You know, he could say that even, because I can see there can only be one Highlander, and there can only be one Royal Rumble winner, except for that one time when two people won.
Yes.
And that wasn't this time, though.
No.
What you could then do, though, is have Rollins go to SmackDown.
Love it, and that would be dope.
Because while I can see them doing Cena versus, we talked about it last time, is like Cena getting his 17th title victory is a little bit bigger than Roman getting his next title victory and dethroning Brock. So what I would do is have Rollins win the title against Jinder, give Cena something else to do that is also high profile. Use him as a drawing point of sure. But then you would have Rollins win it and then Roman win it, and then Dean's kind of like out in the cold a little bit, and maybe that could cause some dissension with Dean.
Alternately, you could not do like exactly that. I like the idea that SmackDown is where Rollins ends up because he wins the Rumble, if that's the way you play it. How funny would it be, though, if Rollins doesn't win his match? Okay, so he's pissed. And then Lesnar is just kicking the shit out of Roman until the ref gets knocked down. And the Shield fucking comes in, decimates Brock fully, just ends him, throws him back in the ring. Roman wins. And now you have a beautiful full heel turn back to the original Shield where they're kind of the bad guy. You know, they kind of played it dirty, but it was like enough is enough. We have to walk away with some gold. You know, the Shield is good enough to walk away with some gold, and it's better than no gold.
I would like them doing that, but they won't do that. They're not going to turn Roman heel. Not like that.
Especially not
all, probably.
With Brock's swan song.
No. However, okay, so coming up, as I got a message from Spotify. What? Go away. they've never messaged me before.
Weird. I love the Shield shirt, by the way.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Now, coming up for TLC, we still got a few weeks up to lead up to this. We have 4 matches on the card. Of course, we mentioned Asuka versus Emma in her debut. We mentioned rematch with Kalisto being champion against Enzo. Alexa Bliss is going to be defending against Mickie James. And, of course, the Shield versus the Miz, Cesaro, Sheamus, and Braun Strowman in a 4-on-3 handicap. Tables, ladders, and chairs, because with them attacking Braun, the Miz now has him in there to give him the edge. Going to be a great match. Going to be a cool event. I definitely want to see that play out.
Yeah,
But,
TLC
buddy,
looks
we
to
have
be.
one more thing.
I was just going to say, TLC looks really good because of the debut of Asuka, Shield's reunion match. Like, officially, they're going to do a lot leading up to that. They've only got, like, another week this next Monday, or actually last Monday, 2 days ago, if you're listening to this on our debut day, 2 days ago on Raw was the go home. No, next Monday is the go home before the pay-per-view, right? Yes. It's so confusing. No, it has to be this Monday. Because this Monday would be like the 16th, I think. And the pay-per-view is on the 22nd, I think. Sunday the 22nd. That sounds right.
So the pay-per-view is going head-to-head with The Walking Dead?
I fucking guess so. I didn't know that Walking Dead dropped on the 22nd.
Well, hold on. I have the Wikipedia. I don't know why. I have it up right here. Yes, it is the 22nd.
Okay.
So they're going up against The Walking Dead.
Choices, Brando. Watch the fucking Walking Dead first and watch TLC later.
I'll watch the DLC on Monday then. That's where that's going to go.
Sorry, Walking
buddy,
Dead takes precedent.
It does for me. Now, Nate, we wanted to do a new segment where we kind of we pick a single wrestler or event or something, and we highlight it. It's almost like a retrospective, like we do over on the Game Addict show, where we spend a whole segment talking about this one person, whatever. We have each picked 5 wrestlers.
Yes, sir.
We have a list of 10. We're not going to name them all. We're just going to pick one at random. They're in a name picker. And what we're going to do is the one that gets picked is going to be taken out. And then we're going to keep this list, and we're going to keep adding to it until we just keep generating a list of wrestlers.
I love that.
And, we're going to talk about when we first saw this person, when we first liked them, when we first, what's our favorite match, our favorite feud, what do we think their best or their peak is, whatever that. We're just going to discuss them. So
sure.
Here we are. Are we ready?
Yes, sir. Random number generator.
Well, it's a random name generator.
Oh, random name generator, even better.
Yeah, I put their names in the field, and it's going to pick one. So here we go. Random name is Bret Hart.
Oh, shit, dude. This is a great first one for a superstar highlight. Obviously, he's one of the legends of wrestling. I know he's one of your all-time favorite.
He is probably my all-time favorite wrestler. Definitely up there for me because he, as a kid, when I first got into wrestling, he was somebody I gravitated towards. He wasn't quite main event yet. When I first started actually understanding what was going on and watching it semi-regular, it was like 92, and he was still in the IC picture. I remember the build-up to WrestleMania 8.
Wow.
Which is, that WrestleMania has a soft spot for me. Some people don't like it. They think it's a bit further down. However, for me, it's like, it's up there. It's WrestleMania 8 took place in Indianapolis at the Hoosier Dome.
Did that have Taker Jake?
Yes.
Okay.
But the Bret match was Bret versus Roddy.
Mm-hmm.
Where they did this thing where Bret lost the title at a house show against the Mountie. Okay? They said he had a fever. And they did this. The Mountie won it on like the Saturday before like the Royal Rumble, but Bret was still too sick to face him in his rematch at the Royal Rumble. So Roddy stepped in and won his first and only singles belt in WWF. That set up for Roddy versus Bret. They were both baby faces, with Roddy sort of playing the heel. And it's an awesome match because when you think about Roddy, you think of him as more of a brawling style. But his style mixes perfectly with Brett's. They have a damn classic of a match. Put Brett over and solidified him as like going forward as a top guy. They also bladed, which was a strict no-no at the time. And Brett was such a pro, made it look like a complete accident. Meanwhile, Ric Flair bladed on the same show, and him and Randy got fined. Because it's obvious that he bladed. Now, that's the first time. That era was the first time I liked Brett. Brett going into the 90s was a huge megastar for the company, carried them through the new generation. When you think of like the eras of the huge stars, you think of for the WWF, you think Hogan and Macho, you think Brett and Shawn. And of course, the next era after that would be Rock and Austin. So Brett is a guy in the 90s that helped define the WWF when business was down. After the Hogan, before the Austin era, Brett helped make Austin.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about feuds, when you're talking about, like, for me, favorite feuds, I know what I have in mind, but let's get your opinion on Brett, because your story of like starting to really watch wrestling came in when he was already in WCW, right?
Correct. However, now the thing is, growing up, I watched wrestling on and off as a kid, not religiously like you, and not in any kind of consistency, because really my parents didn't like wrestling, so I didn't have an opportunity to choose that that's what I wanted to watch. I remember the first time I ever saw Bret Hart, and it wasn't Bret Hart. It was his action figure. I was at a babysitter's when I was younger, and someone had one of the old school WWF rings and a fuck ton of different wrestlers they brought to play with one day, and I remember the pink and black guy. And I loved the pink and black guy, and I didn't know why. There was something about him. And I had seen a couple matches after that on various different, WWF at the time events or whatever that had been on TV, or when my uncle watched me and he was into wrestling or whatever. And I will never, ever forget the first thing I really remember about Bret Hart was him walking up to a kid in the crowd and giving his shades to the kid. And I always wanted that kid to be me. And, of course, it never was. I never went to any live events when I was a kid and in that era at all.
Me either.
And that is what it is. We were kids, and we didn't know that that's probably something we really would have made lifelong memories with. But Bret, to me, is defined by the Montreal Screwjob, and not his whole career, but my liking of Bret is defined by that, because that transition in that era, 96, 97, him getting ready to leave and leaving the WWF, the documentary they did with Bret, him going to WCW, and then really when I got into Bret hardcore, he was the WCW guy. You are correct. And he was doing things with all different kinds of guys, and whether it be he was being a good guy and going up against Hogan or the NWO or doing this or doing that, and then he kind of fell off, and then he became a bad guy and won a U.S. champ and won a U.S. title. I will never forget, there was I subscribed for the longest to the WCW NWO magazine, and there was some sort of funny, they had like a little funny column or whatever, and someone said, "Will someone please tell Bret Hart to give Giant his shorts back?" And it was a picture, and these fucking shorts Bret Hart were wearing were like down to his shins and as big around as probably as what Big Show or Giant at the time's legs would have been. And it was hilarious to me. But I always loved Bret, and really, I guess you could go back to even when Owen died affected how much I liked Bret, because I liked Owen a lot. And, of course, he had some really awesome stuff going on with being a part of the Nation of Domination and the feuds with DX and whatnot, and just being in the mix with all of that, and some of his classic matches in that era. Going back and studying Owen made me love Bret, because I still could enjoy Bret. And I know that I was very hopeful that he was going to come back at some point and make things right in the WWE. Of course, I think that happened in 2009. And it was 10. Okay. So Bret, to me, is really, really, really a legitimate top tier all time. One of the greatest. He also wrote one of the greatest autobiographies of a wrestler ever. My cartoon life in the world of professional wrestling.
My real life in the cartoon world of wrestling is.
That's it.
I've read that book more than any other book. When I would get bored, I would read it. It's a damn good book. He gets a few things wrong because I'm a stickler for history. He remembers things, dates or events, just slightly off, like to the point where it's like, "Sorry, Hitman, that's not the right that's not the right day," or something like that.
But you wrong, fool.
For me, it was definitely in the mid '90s. I liked Brett a lot. And I remember, for me, what defines Brett for me is his work rate. His ability to have a good match with anybody.
Everybody.
Damn near everybody. He can have a good match with damn near everybody. So much to the point of, like, I originally was like, okay, let's pick some, like, 5 matches. That's very hard to do with a guy like Brett. All right, so Brett matches. Easily, first match that comes to mind, SummerSlam 91. Mr. Perfect, IC belt, Madison Square Garden. As perfect of a match as you can get, no pun intended. Very underrated match to follow that up. Go watch their rematch from King of the Ring 93, second round. I believe it's second round. Damn good match that Brett has with Perfect. It's both are baby faces this time around, so it's different. They have a good competitive match, a bit shorter, so it's a bit more of a. Both guys are trying to win,
kind of compressed.
But also really good. Again, I already mentioned the Roddy match from WrestleMania 8, the Bulldog Wembley match from 92.
Thank you, SummerSlam.
Holy crap. I just rewatched that not too long ago. I told you I've been watching some 92 stuff, so I watched the WrestleMania 8. I watched the Wembley match. Awesome match. Then if you want to go forward a little bit, Survivor Series 95. Brett challenged Diesel for the WWF title.
Oh, yeah.
It was, if I remember correctly, the first instance of someone going through a table on WWF television.
Who goes through the table?
Brett.
Okay.
Brett is on the apron, and Diesel goes, and he shoves the rope, right? And he bounces Brett off the rope, and Brett goes through the announce table.
Damn.
And now I'm talking, it was a actual table it wasn't like the tables they have now where let's take all the stuff out of it and do it. All the stuff was on it when he went through it.
Damn.
And
those monitors are no joke.
And then Brett is dead. And he's just like, he's done. And Diesel goes out to get him, and Brett is dead. Gets him back in the ring, and Brett is dead. And Diesel's like, well, shit. Jackknife? And he goes to pick Brett up and gets him in position for the powerbomb, and Brett falls to the mat dead.
Brett is dead.
And Nash is like, okay, let's try this again. Goes to pick him up. Small package. 1, 2, 3. Brett wins the belt.
Brilliant. And such a classic Bret Hart finish. Outsmarting your opponent in the highest level.
Exactly. Getting that quick win. And that's when Nash turned heel, was so pissed off, got up, picked him up, powerbombed him again, laid the belt on his chest.
This actually sets up the next WrestleMania, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because Brett goes into...
Yeah, Brett went in to go face the Iron Man match with Shawn.
Legendary.
And then Diesel went in to go against Taker as a heel. I actually am not going to say the Iron Man match with Shawn. It's a good match. It's really good, but it's not my favorite Bret Hart match. My favorite Bret Hart match of all time is the WrestleMania 13 match against Stone Cold, the double turn. Holy shit, that match is one of the greatest matches in WrestleMania history.
Agreed.
I want to say when we talked about that in season 1, when we talked about, what are some of your favorite WrestleMania matches? For me, that is close to the top.
There's an image from that match that will never, ever leave my head as so long as I live.
It's the most iconic image ever.
Exactly. Austin in the sharpshooter, blood dripping out of his face. He's screaming, reaching for the ropes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
it's awesome.
Etched into my mind. It is.
Again, such as the pro as Brett, he cut Steve. Steve had never cut himself.
Really?
Yeah, as Brett explained in the book, Brett's like, we need to get some color for this. Because it was going to be a different kind of I Quit match or a submission match because Steve never really had submissions.
No.
I think the year before that, he had used the $1 Million Dream, but he never really had a big submission. He was more of a brawler. So they're like, all right, we're going to have a big knockdown, drag-out fight, and you're going to try to get me to quit and submit by beating me up. And meanwhile, I'm going to take the fight to you while I'm still trying to work you over to get you ready for the sharpshooter. And then Ken Shamrock was a special guest referee. And, of course, we get to that moment. But Steve was nervous because they're not supposed to bleed. And Brett's like, just trust me. And Brett recounts in his book that saying, like, right when he went to go do it, Steve kind of muttered, maybe we shouldn't. Brett's like, too late.
And did
Brett
it.
cut him.
Yep.
And Brett did it, and it worked 100%.
Yeah, that match is legendary.
Yes. And now Brett went on to have some other great matches, of course. I totally skipped over the Owen match from WrestleMania 10. Awesome
Brett
match.
wrestled twice at WrestleMania 10, right?
Yes, he opened and closed the show. He lost to Owen and then beat Yoko at the end.
And that's only ever been done twice. Brett and DB, right?
Well, yeah, but Yoko wrestled twice that night, too. Yoko wrestled Lex Luger first.
That's right. He did wrestle Luger first.
And Luger got disqualified by Mr. Perfect. And then Yoko went on to lose to Brett. Now, DB won and then won.
Yep.
And sort of like reimagined that with Brett. He lost to Owen, putting Owen over.
And then turn around and won.
And beat Yoko, which then sets up Owen being like, I beat you. I want a title shot. And then that set up, of course, the cage match after Owen won the King of the Ring, SummerSlam 94. The cage match, it's one of the best cage matches of all time that doesn't include blood. Because they tell the story of both of them because it's like an escape match. And both of them they keep lunging for the door. I remember they would knock each other down or get each other in the other corner, and they would instantly run and they would try to dive, and the other person would try and dive and stop them.
Is that still the old blue cage?
Yes.
Okay, thought so. Just making sure in my frame of reference where I'm at.
Now, of course, Brett he signed a 20-year deal with Vince. Vince was trying not to let him go to the WWE or WCW because at the time in '96. NWO was going and it was getting hot. They get anybody from the WWF, and it's going to add to it. Now, before Hogan was the third guy, it was actually going to be Bulldog.
Really?
Bulldog was leaving, and then Vince got him to stay. Ended up being Hogan, and worked out for us in hindsight. But can you imagine if Brett had went to WCW then in '96? After losing to Shawn at WrestleMania, never coming back to the WWF officially, going to WCW, becoming the fourth guy or whoever it was. Because that, again, Brett was also in talks to be the third guy also, but Brett was like, no, I'm still under contract technically. I've got dates coming up. He did talk to Eric then, but then he ended up signing a 20-year deal. And Vince reneged on the deal the next year, saying that they were struggling, nearly going out of business. He couldn't afford Brett's contract anymore, and that he was going to have to let him go. And Brett's like, what am I supposed to do? And he's like, well, call up Eric, call up WCW, see if the interest is still there. I will help get you there, Vince says. Goes,
wow.
You go down there. He goes, I don't want to do it, but you go do that, and then maybe you can come back, and we can finish off. The problem was Vince had put the belt on Brett.
Yep. And didn't want to take it off Brett, and Brett didn't want to lose it at home, and then we have a whole thing at Survivor Series that just implodes on itself. 20 years ago at this Survivor Series, by the way.
It is, and it's one of the most notorious events in wrestling history.
Also, most controversial because there are wrestlers, I don't know if you know this, there have been several wrestlers throughout history who have stated Brett told them it's all been a work, even the screw job. And I know, that's what I say. I'm like, no, look. I am a person who has anger in my heart at sometimes, and when shit really gets to me, I can snap on a whole different level. Watch back Survivor Series 97, and Brett is on that level. He has snapped on a way that you don't want to snap on live TV, and he gives zero fucks.
There was a moment that you see, because they went off the air, and the cameras kept filming, and you see some of it. And Brett said in his book that he's in the middle of the ring, doesn't know what to do, and his lip is quivering, and he's fighting back tears. Yep. And he's like telling himself, don't you dare let them see you cry over this bullshit. And he's fighting it. He's fighting the tears. And he said one of the things that helped him was Owen came out and got in his ear and was like, he was talking to him. He's like, you don't look bad for this. They do. And yes, he was pissed, but he was on that level of like so emotionally tore up about it.
I mean, a place that you thought was your family literally betrayed you in public.
After 14 years, missing 2 shots in 14 years. After all that, that's how it went down. And it's unfortunate. WCW, unfortunately, didn't really know how to use them. We got a couple of good matches out of Brett over there.
Also ended his career.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yes.
The match that's never going to get talked about again as far as the WWE realm goes, but the Owen Hart tribute match between Brett and Chris Benoit was a damn good match. The finals of the WCW Mayhem tournament was also, I believe that was also Benoit and Brett, and that was leading up to Vince Russo. Say what you will about him, was trying to center the company around Brett at that time. He saw a lot of things he could do with Brett. He saw him as a great worker and as a great character. And that was the whole new NWO 2000, that whole black and silver.
Jeff Jarrett was a part of that?
And Jeff Jarrett, I want to say Hall and Nash and Brett. And maybe Big Papa Pump. I
Perfect?
don't remember. No, Perfect was dead Perfect was dead. I'm sorry, he was not dead, but he was not a part of that. He was with the West Texas Rednecks, I think.
That's right. Yeah.
But then Brett ends up getting his career ended by Goldberg with the kick.
Kicked him in the fucking temple.
Dude, watch that kick, and it's Brett gets his hands up, and the kick just goes right underneath his hands. It was an accident. It's unfortunate, very unfortunate, but
I believe Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No. You go ahead, and I'll go after.
I was just going to say, I think in his book, doesn't he talk about how part of him in his heart believes that the kick is why he had his stroke?
Yes.
He
had because he got concussed and he didn't get it checked out right away. He even wrestled after he was concussed. And he got powerbound by Nash, and then he saw stars again, and it made it worse. And then while he was concussed, they were doing the angle with Goldberg where Goldberg was running after him, and then Brett was in a car trying to speed away, get the shot of him speeding away in the back. Well, when he went around the corner, the car hit ice, and he almost wrecked into a tractor trailer. And here he is concussed doing all this shit. And it was revealed later that the concussion was so bad, they're like, yeah, you're probably never going to wrestle again.
And then coupled that with his bike ride that ends in a stroke.
A stroke, and he has recovered from that, thankfully. And then he also more recently, in more recent years, flash forwarding here, he's had a bout with colon cancer, and he is in remission from that. He's cancer free right now. But then, of course, he did come back to the WWE in 2000. And we got that awesome in-ring segment with him and Shawn. That was not scripted in any way.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was cool because they met for like 30 seconds backstage, shook hands, and said, like, let's have some fun out there. And they got to say what they had to say, and they ended that whole thing. It was really cool. And then they did the storyline with Vince.
Brett had his last WrestleMania match.
Yeah, which is not a good match.
No.
It's more of a moment.
It's symbolism.
Yeah, Brett got to get his one up. His Vince got his comeuppance. I liked some of the story stuff they did with that. It was cool. Brett got his last title victory against The Miz, winning the United States title. And of course, Brett was former United States champion, WCW. It was more of an honor type thing here.
I forgot who he dropped the belt to. Back to Miz.
I don't remember what happened with that either, actually, how that worked out. And then, of course, Brett had a couple of I want to say his last appearance in a ring was against the Nexus. He was a part of John Cena's team against the Nexus, the match that killed the Nexus, essentially.
He also made an appearance at NXT cornering Natalya. And then Rick was in the other corner. I watched Brett's Hall of Fame speech recently, and he told one of my favorite stories, and that was Owen ribbing Stu at WrestleMania 4 or 5, and I want to say it was 4, but I really don't remember which one it was, but it was at Trump Plaza, and Brett had flown Stu and one of his kids in, and it might have been Dallas or Jade or somebody. I think it was Jade. But like they were staying in the hotel room, and Stu was excited. He was lit up because a lot of the old timers had come out for WrestleMania, and he got to see a lot of the old timers, and then hang out and reminisce. And it was the morning of WrestleMania. It was Sunday morning, and they were just kind of waking up and getting around. And a phone call came in from the desk, and Brett answered it and said it was Reggie Parks. And of course, Reggie Parks, he's the legendary belt maker, correct?
And a weightlifter. Now I want to say he was even a wrestler back in the day. And of course, Stu knows Reg, and they're old friends. They go back, but he gets on the phone. He's like, "Hey, Reg. How you doing? Yeah. Yeah. It's good. It's good to hear from you, Reg. And on the other end, Reg is just, man, he's kind of like, hey, you were always afraid of me, Stu. You're always afraid of me. You never wanted to, I'd have whipped your ass back in the day. And he just really getting Stu all worked up.
Lighting a fire under him.
Because Brett's like, Stu just gets kind of quiet, and he sits down, and you see like before he sat down, he was like, he was pacing the room, and he had the phone in his hand. It was one of those old cord phones. He's kind of like getting all like, he's saying stuff in the phone, muttering, and Brett's like, what the hell's going on? And it's like it's finally Stu yells, Reg, if you wanted to try me, why didn't you try me? And then he slams the phone and sits down on the edge of the bed. Brett's like, what? And he goes, is that bastard Owen? You got me.
Yeah.
And I guess Owen said had told Brett later on, is like he was trying as hard as he could to keep it going, but he was just laughing at the thought of Stu getting so worked up that he finally cracked and was like, no, it's me, Owen, Dad.
Fucking.
There's that story, and then there's a story that I read in the book. I don't know if he's ever told this in public, but it's an old Heart Foundation story with Jim. He told the story of like they were drinking in the hotel bar, and Brett was actually, man, he was pretty tired, and then I don't know if they were drinking with Andre or whatever, but he's like, hey man, he's trying to tell Jim, hey man, we need to go, we got early flight, Jim's like, I'll come up in a few, and Brett's like, oh great, he's gonna come in and wake me up, jeez. So much for my good night's sleep. So Jim's like, I won't wake you up, dude. I'll be quiet as a mouse, whatever.
Yeah, right.
So then Brett's in there sleeping, and then he remembers waking up, and there's Jim standing at the foot of the bed, pissing on the floor. And then Brett's just like, are you fucking kidding me? It's like, not only did he wake me up, but he's pissing on the floor?
In front of him.
Yeah, and I mean, it's dark, so he can't see. But Brett's just like rolls his eyes and rolls back over and falls back to sleep, right? And then the next day, Brett wakes up and he's kind of irritated, He's like, man, really? And then Jim's like, what? He goes, God damn it! When you got in last night, no, you woke me up, but you pissed on the floor. And Jim's like, what? No, I didn't. He goes, yes, you did. He goes, dude, you were dreaming. There's no way. He goes, I wouldn't do that. And he's like, I've never just pissed I've never been that drunk. I've pissed on the floor. And Brett's like, dude, I'm telling you, I woke up and you were standing right over there and pissing on the floor. And Jim's like, you're crazy. He goes, well, look there. Is it wet? And Jim walks over there and goes, dry as can be. And Brett's like, walks over there, he goes, shit. Okay, man, I'm sorry. I guess I did dream it. And Jim's like, water under the bridge. Slaps him on the back, picks up his suitcase. Jim pissed in his own suitcase.
Oh, that's
and Brett
great.
died laughing. And the entire way down the elevator, down to the car, the ride to the airport, Jim just keeps saying, son of a bitch. He can't say shit.
Oh, that's awesome.
Brett's book is amazing. So many stories, so many funny stories from the career of Brett. Go check out that book. I'm sure you can find it on Amazon. Of course, check out the network and just check out some of his great matches. Any of the ones that we've said. And even his documentaries, he has his documentary he did. He has like the hidden matches, the Heart DVD, and even the Wrestling with Shadows documentary that you said. Mm-hmm. All great stuff to look at for Brett. But I think it's going to do it for us today here, bud.
Hey, Brando, you brought up networks.
Yeah, we're a part of a network.
You could listen to us on the Journey into Comics Network, which is probably where you're at if you're hearing our voices. You can check out the Journey into Comics Network on all the different podcasting sites, whether it be iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Podbean. I know I'm missing Overcast, Downcast, Upcast, Leftcast, Rightcast. I know that those aren't all real, but obviously if you're a person who is listening to podcasts, you know where to find us. We're on all the major different platforms. Also, Brandon, I'm not really good with our social medias. I know we have a Facebook, but you said we have a Twitter. I don't have access to it.
Yeah, I'm not good with it either. We're like fathering and hosting so many others that I kind of forget about it.
It's hard, man.
To be honest, so I need to I at least share the show on there.
JIW on JIC on Twitter.
JIW on JIC over there on Twitter. Of course, you can check us out on journeytocomics.com. If you want to do that as well, and you can download and just listen to us on your browser or on your phone there. But dude, I think that is going to wrap it up for us here this week on Journey into Wrestling. And of
what
course,
hearts?
We're looking, huh?
What hearts? That's the episode title. What hearts?
Oh, what hearts? I was like, you actually legitimately confused me. I'm like.
I didn't even say that. What?
I'm like, I got lost in translation there. So,
all right,
buddy. With that being said, thank you guys for checking out this week's episode of Journey to Wrestling, episode 3 of season 2. We'll see you back for episode 4 as we're going to be looking at the TLC event that's going to be happening. Can't wait for that. And we're going to be looking at shaping the card for Survivor Series. I said it right this time. I didn't call it SummerSlam.
Yeah,
so,
good job.
Until then, I've been Brando.
I've been Nate.
And we'll see you next time.